Hello, welcome back to That Old Shop. My name is Mike Scott. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to get out here, this nylon bushing. That's all that separates the weight of the trailer and the steel of the spring eye rubbing on the bolt that goes through there. It's just these nylon bushings. It's probably the cheapest way to make a trailer suspension system. Like I said, they make bronze bushings and then a bolt that has a grease zerk in it, of course a hole drilled in there to grease the ID of the bronze bushings against the bolt. But this is the way a lot of trailer manufacturers put things together. This is what I knocked out of there. You can see this bushing's totally worn out. I've probably got about 7,500 miles on this trailer. And this particular one, I already had to dig it out of there, but there's a section of the bushing stuck in the eye here. It's trapped between the curl of the eye up against the leaf, the rest of the leaf, so I'm taking this pick and having to just scrape it out there and really cutting it off because I can't. I tried jamming some things in here, different pry bars and things, to try to separate the eye to get the remainder of the bushing out, but I can't spread the eye at all no matter what I do. I've tried a pry bar. It's just stiff. And I'm taking this brush for cleaning copper pipes before you solder them together and scrubbing the hole out here. I could cut this off and put it in my drill, and I may do that yet. I'm using deep well sockets to get the bushing out as I'm fitting it in there. You can use it for knocking the old bushing out. Then I'm going to put NACs in the hole and around the bolt as I assemble them. The equalizer here, I ordered a replacement kit for bolts, and to get everything the cheapest, I just ordered a kit that includes these brackets here that you weld onto the trailer. But to buy the bolts and the bushing separately, it was going to be quite a bit more money. So I just ordered the whole kit, and I'm just using some of the parts. Basically everything except the weld-on brackets. The equalizer here already has nylon bushings installed in it. So this anti-seize is pretty old. It's kind of dried out, so hopefully it'll kind of stay in there a little longer and not be getting washed out. E-Trailers got a video on YouTube about replacing these parts, and it says not to use wet bolts with the bushing, with the nylon bushing, because it'll wear the nylon bushings out. Doesn't seem to hardly make sense. My trailer dealer, where I bought the trailer from, they only have wet bolts and nylon bushings. They don't even have any bronze bushings. So when they repair a trailer, they're using wet bolts. Excuse me. They're using wet bolts with nylon bushings, what E-Trailer says not to do. So 6 to 1, half a dozen of the other sometimes. Gets around the bolt. So it has a heavy knurl underneath the head, so that has to press into the hole, so I can't really pound it in there without bending the bracket. So I'm just going to squeeze it with impact with a nut. You can get, these are little shackles. These are 1/4 inch material. Let's see how these are. These aren't, the old ones aren't really worn at all. They make 1/2 inch ones. It's supposed to be improvement, but I don't know, 1/2 inch seems kind of overkill. I am replacing the bolts because in the past I've tried reuse these, and the knurling is already knocked down, and the lock nuts don't really lock on the thread as tight anymore. So I'm using new bolts with new shackle plates. Okay, so I have everything lubed up here. I got the equalizer temporarily on there, the nylon bushings. I have NACs around the OD and I should say the ID and the spring eye, and I'm just throwing some more on the OD of the bushing here. I got it already on the ID of the bushing. Nobody suggests to do this, by the way. This is just something I'm doing. My own experiment. I'm not happy with nylon bushings at all. I thought since I stepping up to a 6-lug trailer or a 10,000 pound trailer that those would be gone, because I had that issue with my lighter duty utility trailer. That's what they have in there. So these suspension systems are the same basic parts for 3,500 to 7,000 pound axles they could be used on. So That's something you gotta look at when you're looking to get a trailer, what kind of suspension parts they had. If I would have known they had this, I probably wouldn't have spent the money on the new trailer with these kind of parts on there. And like I've already mentioned, the Chinese bearings that were in here. But you could physically possibly look at these parts and see if they have nylon bushings or the bronze bushings with wet bolts. I mean, if they got bolts with a grease zerk in them, then you know you got a better suspension system. I'm doing this, putting this back the way it was originally, just because I'm tight on money right now, because you know, staying in motel rooms and that, trying to locate a property to move to, that all adds up. So there's the shackle in the back. See if that lines up. I have the trailer jacked up by the frame, by the tongue jack and the frame in the back of the trailer. And then I have individual little floor jacks, one underneath each axle. I've had problems in the past with these axles, with these shackles flipping the wrong way. And I've had a lot of trouble trying to get them back the right way. Once I set the trailer down, I've wrestled with this when I did the bearings and the brakes. So I decided to put a jack underneath each axle to try to keep these orientated like this, because sometimes one will flip down and it's a bear trying to get it back up. So put this other one in. Gotta let that axle down just a tad. Okay, so I was having trouble getting these shackle plates on. I had to take a wrench on this side and kind of tweak this equalizer out, because the holes are off 1/4 of an inch, so I had to tweak it like this. And I couldn't, once I got that side on, I couldn't quite get this side on. So I had to use this C-clamp in order to, I just hooked the bolt on the edge of the hole and then used the C-clamp. Also on these lock nuts, they're a little different type of lock nut. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but there's a line scribed on one edge of the nut. So that is the tighter, so it's looser over here. So these nuts are squashed a little bit, and that's what provides the locking tension or whatever on the bolt. So when you go to put them on, it's going to be hard to get them on when you have the line side in, because that's the tight side. So you got to flip it around and start out here. Then it'll go on. No washers. So you got to tighten them up in order to pull the knurling into the bracket, or in the case on this side where the leaf is, to pull the knurling into the shackle. I'll show you on an old one. See how the knurling is in the hole? Well, you have to create that by tightening it up. Make sure the head's all the way drawn up. Then loosen it just a tad so that this isn't squeezed too tight on your equalizer. because your equalizer's got to move back and forth. Got a pivot in here. So it's kind of a feel type of thing. Okay, moving on. Got to do the other end of the leaf spring. On this side, since this is a tandem axle trailer, and we got another one to do over here on this end. So I had to pop the bolt, the knurling area, out of the other side of this bracket. It was pressed in there. I'm just using a center punch to drive it out the rest of the way. Just axle up. That's more in line. Let it down to get access to the nylon, the old nylon. This nylon bushing is in better shape. I mean, it's deformed, but it's not totally wore out like the other one. You can see there's a little split here where it was getting pinched in the curl of the eye there. There's that slit there, and it was starting to cut into the bushing. Well, even if you put bronze bushings in there, that's going to be the wear point where that eye, it's going to flex right there where the slit is, where it comes together. That's why I think there needs to be some type of lubrication on the OD of the bushing. With the wet bolt, it just puts grease on the ID of the bushing, between the ID, the bushing, and the bolt. So what I'm doing here is putting anti-seize all over everything, basically. So everything will slip good for a while. Okay, so got that end on. I actually had to put a bar in here by the equalizer to get this hole to line up here in between the jack, lifting the axle up and down, and putting this bar in here. So when I put this bar in here to pry this axle back to get that other bolt to line up, I noticed that these shackles still move quite a bit, even with new bushings in there. So So there is some slop in there, even with new bushings and new bolts. So here again, this is where these shackles, see this one's ready to drop down here. And once it drops down there, it can be a bear sometimes to get that back up there. So it's kind of a balancing act as far as where you have the jack and how much pressure you got on the axle. So let's get this bushing out here. I can see that this bushing's kind of deformed, and these eyes probably aren't even round when they're brand new when they're made, because it's just a twist around there. How can you get a nice round hole? You know better than that, right? I'm kind of leery of the bronze bushings, how long they would last, because since this isn't really a perfectly round hole, because it's just a twisted piece of metal, that the bushings would have a tendency to break, crack. I almost think a hardened tubular dowel would be better. See if we can get this one to line up easily here. And it keeps wanting to go forward. There we go. Got the pry bar in the right spot to get this lined up. Putting any seeds in there. There we go. Not really putting any anti-seize on these threads. I mean, some is ending up there. Had that backwards. Okay, that's one side done. Now let's see if I can get the wheels back on there and these shackles don't flip on me. Shouldn't, when I got the jacks under there this time. there you have it. That's the way the shackles are supposed to be, where the spring is at the top. So the shackle goes from the spring eye down to the equalizer. Spring eye down to the equalizer. Before, when I would lift up the whole trailer by the frame, then these axles would drop down wherever they wanted to. One would be up, one would be down. The other side of the axle, the same axle would be the opposite. And it would be a real battle to try to get them back to where they're supposed to be. So I lifted it up by the frame a little bit, not as high as I used to. And then I put a jack under each axle, and the other side of the axle still has the tires on it, and they're still on the ground. Okay, this will be a real-time deal. I have an appointment with my chiropractor. I've had some injuries through the years, and the chiropractor is the only one that seems to be able to help me, but I got to see him kind of regularly. So we're going to do this real time, see how long it takes me to do it. I've only got about 40 minutes. You can see in the camera, but these are really loose with the old bushing still on there. That bushing is just about gone. This one's a little better, but still had to be replaced. The other thing, these spring eyes aren't, this little gap here where the twist ends aren't all the same. This one is open more, so this one's going to be loose when I assemble it with new parts, most likely. these one went right on. I had a struggle with the other side. Fry things and tweak things to try to get the last plate to line up. That knurled head didn't want to go in there, so I really had to crank on that one. I chewed up underneath the nut on this side trying to do it. So that's going to be the first part that goes right there. This one down. Get the bushing. Oh, this one isn't lining up. And my granddaughter is just getting here, so I'll have to pause the video to say my hellos. Okay, so got that done. Saying hellos to the granddaughter. Now I gotta see about lining this up here. This axle's got to go back. Fighting everything here. Let's see. This one is just too tight here. Yeah, I had that one bolt too tight there. There we go. Okay, just got the other eye to do. At the far end there. Let it down to get it to high. For some reason, the axles on this side aren't going down far enough. I'm having to pry them down a little bit. My driveway is on a little sideways pitch, so that may be the issue. That one's still split. wheels on, but I'm basically done. One thing you want to make sure of is that the bolt heads, where that knurling is, if the bolt head is all the way in, that takes some cranking with the impact or a wrench, whatever you got, to press that knurling into the other side. So just a little fingernail check. You can kind of tell by how much thread you have. If you have an even amount of thread, then you either got them all right or you got them all wrong. Okay, so I got those done. I still got to put 3 more lug nuts on each wheel and torque them down, but I got to go hop in the shower now. I'll get to the doctor's appointment. Alright, well, the second half of the video there was about 27 minutes. That was real time. That was doing the driver's side. I only stopped the camera when my granddaughter showed up, but I restarted it and continued on. So that was 27 minutes. It was about 27 minutes for the first half of the video there, but I did a lot of editing on that, cutting out a lot of thinking time there and getting tools together kind of time there. So that's the tools I used. I jacked the back of the trailer up just one side with the floor jack. Used the trailer's tongue jack. For my setup, I actually had to lower it, the tongue jack, because it was set so high to get it off my tow vehicle. Your mileage may vary there. You may have a different situation. So I actually had to lower it, otherwise it was going to be lifting the front tire off the ground first. So I wanted them to come off the ground evenly so that those shackles wouldn't do that flipping thing I was talking about. So I just lifted up the one side with the floor jack, left the other side tires on, tires still on the ground. And then the smaller 4 jacks there, I put one underneath each axle so I could get the bolts out and get the bolts back in. It would help me with the lining, and it kept the axles from falling down and those shackles doing possibly one funky thing on one of the wheels. The other tool that I don't have out here is a deep well socket for driving the bushings out, but you could just use a bolt, to be honest with you. Just catch the edge of the end and drive them out. The other thing I might like to make note of is the nylon bushings were worn the most. This is the tandem axle trailer. Between the axles where the equalizer was, bushings were worn away the most. You can see this one's half gone already. So that was on the upper bolt. This would bolt together like that. So the most worn one was the upper bolt here. This is the other end of this spring here, and that's mostly intact, as was this one over here, mostly intact. Again, here's another one that was the upper bolt near the equalizer. That's, that's a quarter gone. Same thing on the other side of the trailer. So I would watch for looseness around your equalizer first. If you're concerned about your suspension on your trailer, if it seems pretty loose around the equalizer there, then you know those parts are gone first, and the other ones will follow shortly. But if you let it go too long, those bolts are gonna be wearing on the equalizer parts and the shackle. I did see some of these shackles, there were kind of holes were kind of oblong on them. So for me, I'm probably going to do, the next time I do this, I'll probably do a wet bolt system. That's where these bolts would have a grease fitting and a drilled hole so for the grease to come out. Probably bronze bushings. I'll look into some hardened tubular dowels. If the dimensions work out, I might do that. Maybe I'll put a hole in the side of that so some grease can get to the outside of that sleeve or bushing. Seems kind of weird, and even with the wet bolt system, you're only getting grease on the inside here. The outside isn't getting anything. And there's really nothing to hold that from spinning. So that's still going to be moving. The bushing is still going to move inside the eye on the leaf spring pack, because that's just a bent piece of metal. It's not perfectly round. These don't necessarily touch evenly all the way around on the outside. So that's all I have to say about that. So I was hoping to include the taking the bumper off the vehicle, tow vehicle. I got a new bumper coming today, but my body's pretty much shot with what I've done so far. And after going to the chiropractor, I just picked up the tools and laid this out, and that's about all I'm going to do today. I still have 3 lug nuts to put on each wheel and torque them. I'm not even going to do that pulling today. I'm in recuperation mode before I can get back to do anything else. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Thanks. See ya.